I should be able to go live on Instagram. Hold on. It's not working. Give me a sec. Yeah, you guys have your links? Okay, now I can go live on. I should be able to go live on Instagram. Hold on. Oh man, I'm having this echo issue again. Oh, give me a sec.
Happens to me too.
You guys have your links? Okay.
Everybody's delayed on mine.
I should be able to go live on Instagram. Hold on. It's happening. Oh man, I'm having this echo issue again. Oh. Give me a sec.
Happens to me too.
You guys have your links? Okay.
Everybody's delayed on mine.
Picking mine up.
On Instagram. Hold on. It's happening. Oh man, I'm having this echo issue again. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I'm catching that. It's pretty heavy though. It's definitely.
Is it an echo?
No, it's better. Yeah, you're good.
Okay, I muted my other. I think it's because I needed to mute the other page. So yes, welcome everyone. Do we like this music? We want to pop it off. What's the vibe?
I can give you a morning freestyle. I just woke up 11 minutes ago. Perfect timing, perfect rhyming. Don't do no climbing, don't do no killing, don't do no stealing. I'm praising the Lord. I'm opening the food up. I open the pot. The name in the pot. The street with gold. I give you my soul. I give you the gold. I cap in the letter. Feel like a letter. I feel like a.
We needed to drop in the beat. Come on, Ibrahim, you've got the piano.
I feel like I needed another beat. Like
you gotta hop on that keyboard.
I can do the beatboxing if you want to get into it.
Oh my gosh.
Vibes. But good morning.
Yes,
Good morning,
everyone. We are here. MillionHEIRs in progress. Does everybody have their audience links? For those of you who don't know, we are all Gates Millennium Scholars alumni, and we got together. Ibrahim actually brought us together, and we're an accountability group. We're 4 entrepreneurs with 4 different journeys, 4 different goals, and we are supporting each other on that journey. And we're sharing tips and tricks of how we make it work, how we make these businesses happen. So
pretty much.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass it over to. Well, I would say this today. We're actually got a Maz of Art. I mean, he's with us all the time, but we're actually highlighting his shop. He is an amazing artist here in Chicago. And if you guys have not heard of him yet, definitely click on his shop, check out some of his work. I have to say, like, oh my goodness, I feel like Amaz is a true artist. He does digital art, painting. He's done murals in Chicago. He does videography, photography, rapping, like any type of art form, he does it.
You know, it's interesting. I was just looking at a video today. They was like, man, Michael Jackson was an amazing artist. They were showing like he had like a catalog of hand drawings that he did. That was amazing. I'm like, wow, I never knew that Michael Jackson did this kind of stuff.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, he did Martin Luther King. He's doing like architectural sketches.
I do wonder if like artists tend to be like, you know, multi-talented and in different arts and I think it makes sense in a way.
Definitely. Isn't that what like a triple threat is kind of? I mean, if you're counting like singing and dancing and acting as like arts, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like those are all different skill sets. Like just because you can dance doesn't mean you can sing, you know? You gotta do that, but
I would say the underlying factor, and I wonder if creativity also impacts like the physical arts, like dance. One of the things I've been talking about this week that came up as a topic was how do you quantify creativity? So in my undergrad, in my design class, I remember we were trying to figure out if you have a significant impact of creativity if you write on a piece of paper or if you're on a whiteboard. And so we were trying to design solutions to increase creativity. And I stumbled upon this kind of like pseudo test where essentially in 1 minute, you list out all the different ways to approach a scenario. So for example, if you have a notebook and you're on a deserted island, in 1 minute, name all the ways you could utilize that notebook. And so it's really not about how you utilize it, it's about the quantity. So you want to see how many different ideas you come up with. Mm-hmm. Then we asked the same question, but used a whiteboard. And we actually saw a statistically significant difference where more people were creative on the whiteboard. So if you ever want to test the creativity, if you're interviewing, that's a very helpful tip. Just ask for 1 minute and then do a quantification and comparison across all the individuals. You can see where people lie on their creativity scale. And so my question is, do you think creativity can be trained or taught?
I think so.
I think part of like at the base of creativity is just getting your mind to think in different ways. So I feel like if that is the definition, then I think it can be taught. You can teach your mind to think diversely.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta log on to the computer.
Something Amaz and I were actually texting about was around spirituality and creativity. I thought that was an interesting concept that I hadn't thought about before. Of like, how does different religions inspire creativity, or do they?
Yeah, I know
they definitely do.
When I think about creativity, my thought on creativity is the creations. God created us. God created everything, the world. You know what I'm saying? Everything that came from the beginning. You know, and then when he made us in his image, I always imagine that everyone has the ability to create. I think what starts to happen is this awareness of creativity. And I don't think everyone has the same awareness of creativity. So, I don't think it's necessarily good or bad. And I think it's kind of create in different ways because we all have the ability to speak. We all have the ability to say things and some of life. So, you know, some people don't have that same awareness. I think the awareness is a key factor in creativity. I think when you start doing like different I guess tests, we do like 20 things we do in a notebook, or we do the whiteboard or the sketchbook, and we see what ends up being more creative. Now that might be the way to train somebody. Say, oh, I never even thought about those things. Or somebody else that's an artist, they might just do that by off of just inheriting the creativity within them. They might go jot down 20 things in a sketchbook and say, you know, I got this whiteboard here. I'm gonna go with the whiteboard. They might do it without even the prompt being suggested. It might just be this inherited flow that leads them to doing such a thing. Yeah.
I'm gonna turn off the music because I feel like I don't know why it's making
it's killing the vibe.
I'm getting the wrong vibes with the music.
I almost forgot the music was there for a second. I'm like,
I was like, I don't know what it is, but I need some different
I was in the elevator.
It was giving relationship advice. I ain't gonna hold you. It was giving like, well, let me tell you this one thing about relationships. See, women don't know what men do. That's what
relationships. I mean, well, okay. I think this is interesting because I was talking to someone about this yesterday, and we were talking about how the same skill set that you have in a business can translate to your relationship, like your romantic relationship. Some of those same like organization and the same like perseverance, like there's different skill sets that translate really well. And my dad's mentee, my parents have been married for over 38 years. They've been together for over 40 years, and they mentor young couples. And so his mentee, he was wanting to put together this book called Husbandpreneur. It's a working title, but it was just kind of like to showcase those parallels between, leading a family and leading a business.
That's so funny. Last night, as I was talking about investing, one of the things I joked about was I think a positive signal is, are you married? Because if you can hold a relationship for a period of time, that's also a positive signal, because having co-founder issues is one of the biggest reasons why companies fail. So having evidences of long-term relationships is a positive signal, one of many.
Yeah, I mean, I do have to say that, like, statistically, though, that is disproportionately asked of women and almost never asked of men. And so it, like, becomes kind of this, sexist thing that is, like, something that I don't think needs to be involved. I feel like I had this, like, argument with my family. It wasn't really an argument. It was a conversation, but, like, around infidelity and whether or not infidelity in your personal relationship translates to an inability to, like, be faithful in business as well. And so I just feel like, not so much like, okay, what stage are you at, or like whether or not that's your priority, because arguably that's a distraction, right? Because like for investors who ask women that question, their concern isn't around whether you're married. Their concern is, okay, how long until you have a baby and you're no longer working for us full time? So like, I think the nature of that question isn't really rooted in like what you're suggesting it is when it's often asked. That being said, yeah, I do think like it kind of translates. It's just like in practice, it's not really coming from an unbiased like lens.
I agree. One of the biggest things I found out or I've been doing research on is on the wealth gap, and how there's been really interesting studies coming out that I've just found this week about how it really impacts mothers, right? So it's like a mother wage gap. because that's one of the biggest issues is that when people have to take care of a child and also try to balance the professionals, it unfairly puts onto the mother.
Yeah.
I'm maintaining the Instagram chat. Yeah, sorry. So if I get quiet.
Oh, what's going on in there? I'm so annoyed.
Somebody just said that is so true about I was gonna ask which part they were referring to. I don't know if you're referring to what you said, Savannah, or what Ibrahim said. And I would almost, what I was gonna say, Ibrahim, is I would like tweak your statement just a little bit, because I don't think it's just marriage. I think it's like any long-term relationship.
Correct.
Because friendships, like I've been friends with since middle school, like one since preschool, like multiple since middle school, and then a few since high school, one since college. Like if you can maintain those long-term relationships, I think that's a good sign of your ability to do that in business as well.
I would say the yes and to this in terms of like what I'm looking for is how do you build community? And I'm looking for signals of trust as well as the ability to really emphasize and lead people.
So maybe that's our topic today, is like what to look for in the people that you want to do business with. Yeah. What do you guys think?
So I have a hot topic about this because I think that we often talk about the emotional piece of this, and it kind of, while I understand, I think that it is rooted in bias, especially when it comes to like the vast majority of decision makings, even hiring decisions. And so when a lot of people talk about I need to emotionally feel right if this person is going to be part of the team, which I understand. I think there is merit to that of using your intuition. I don't know how you deal and mitigate with bias. Because if the vast majority of hiring managers are homogenous, then they make decisions based off of what they know in the communities they're surrounded by. So sometimes they can overlook very valuable candidates, and it becomes rooted in bias. So I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say about that.
I think in business is interesting. It's kind of similar to marriage a lot of times. I think most relationships begin with a proposal. You know what I'm saying? And you look at what a proposal is, whether you're talking about business or whether you're talking about marriage, is that one individual that's kind of coming to another individual and saying, hey, this is what I think we should do.
Totally.
You know what I'm saying? And then it's up for another person to say yes or no. You know what I'm saying? So like both people have the ability to make a decision there. It's like once the decision is made, now it's like, okay, what do we fulfill? You know what I'm saying? But at that initial proposal, the thing about life, everyone grows. You know what I'm saying? Everyone evolves. More things to learn, more things to express.
Yeah.
You know, and at the core of the proposal, both people wanted something. You know, whether the proposal was agreed on or not, it's like, okay, now there is some sort of want here. You know what I'm saying? That's something that we both want. How are we going to sustainably work towards this goal that we share? And then it might, you know, along the way, it could be business, it could be marriage. Man, I realized that at the proposal stage, we didn't really have the same exact goal. Now we have to figure out how to either pivot, where we're going to go from here. And I think a lot of times that's where it kind of comes down to within business and its relationship to how we work in our relationships. It's like, you know, it's like, what do we want along the way? You know, why are we here? What's our intention? You feel me? Intentional, you can have an expectation, but I think good intentions is so crucial in all arenas. You know what I'm saying? You can go into business and somebody might not have the best intentions. You know what I'm saying? Or you can go into a marriage, or you can go into a relationship or a long-term friendship. Mm-hmm. Might not be the best intentions, or might be good intentions, you know? And things might work one way, things might not work one way. I think it's kind of interesting when you consider life, because it's like, how does the variables of life affect that original proposal? You know what I'm saying? As the two parties or the business parties move forward, you know what I mean? I guess it's another question, but I guess it's like how my mind works on that sort of question.
I get what you're saying, Amaz. I think Ibrahim was talking about more so with like hiring practices is what I picked up, Ibrahim, like how people will use culture fit as a reason to disregard someone who has the proper credentials.
I think that's a good thing.
I think it's a limit to it though. Like what is your culture about? Like, have you defined your culture, and what part of your culture don't they fit?
Of course. Okay. So this came up at Build Summit, and this was like really interesting about like, okay, you being able to define your culture and not having it like having to have it get like washed or like cleansed by what society's trends are prioritizing right now. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like just the vast majority of people, in my opinion, are like obsessed with this like rest narrative or this like, oh, we like inclusivity in a way that's like kind of artificial. It's like we need to include everyone's opinion, therefore your opinions do not matter. And it's like very like like, you know what I'm trying to say? And it's like sometimes I feel like you lose your actual culture when you're trying to prioritize this like, okay, how do we create an environment that's like reflective of inclusivity of everyone when maybe that's not what actually moves the needle forward for your company. So they had this concept of, have you heard of like 996?
I haven't heard of it.
Okay, Ibrahim, do you want to explain it better? Because it was my first time, like first draft learning it. If not, I can. But basically, okay, you want to try it?
We can. I mean, it comes from like the Chinese work schedule of like working 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days per week.
Okay, exactly. And so just that I literally just learned about this like as a concept, but that's something that like I pretty much do often. Like I'm working 60-hour weeks and like whatever, but I love what I do. When I look for something in a business partner, and this is like, again, like people could look at it like a flaw, or they could just accept that it's like me and how I prioritize like my work activities. But for me, I love when somebody's so obsessed with the idea that they can't stop thinking about it through the night, through the morning. They can text me at any time thinking about it. If they find an article on the topic that our company is, or the problem our company is trying to solve or whatever, that they're constantly prioritizing and sending that. Like, to me, that like obsession over work, that like passion to really problem solve is how I like to operate in like highly active, like high output teams. Not everybody wants to approach their business like that, which is fine. But I think like for me, a culture fit is somebody who like loves to work, somebody who's like doesn't have a lot of distractions. So naturally, I'm probably like, I don't have a lot of people around me generally that like are occupied with like their kids, or like, you know, they spend a ton of time. Like that's just not the reality of like what I do right now. But I think that's a good thing for me. You know, hopefully that'll transition over time. It's just like I'm not in that space right now, but I don't think you have to accommodate your like work culture to fit like a predominant norm or like narrative or theme that's like being pushed, you know?
Well, I
feel like companies do that though. I feel like the only way in like inclusivity, for example, I feel like the reason that wouldn't work is if it's this performative inclusivity, like you're not actually trying to integrate it into and make it adapt to what you already have as a culture. You're just trying to like check boxes and say, okay, I'm being inclusive. And I think that's when it's this breakdown where people decide to pull it back because they're like, oh, this isn't working for us.
Yeah, I guess. What is like inclusive and diverse, right? Like, is diverse ideological diversity? Is it racial? Is it class? Is it whatever?
All of these are parts of diversity in the workplace. Yeah, it's diversity of thought. It could be race. It could be gender. All these are parts of it.
But I think there's an important distinction to be made between if we're talking about a corporation and or a startup.
Yeah,
right? Because those are two very different like lifestyles. And I agree with the point of having your own culture set by the leadership, but oftentimes when power is not distributed equally, and we have one, population who is in power making most of the decisions, then their bias is what's matriculated on the population. So while I would love everybody to stand up and have these culturally rich and very different organizations, that unfortunately is not the norm, especially when we look at where the money is being spent. Right. So if you have a bunch of organizations that are only looking and filtering for one type of thing because that's what they grew up around, and if they didn't grow up in a diverse population, they're looking for one specific type of thing because that's what they know. So you can have a lot of bias when it comes to investments or decision making. And while I agree working hard in our 996 environment can be really fulfilling, I would say the vast majority of teams are not considered psychologically safe or actually have really good operations, which prevents people from bringing their full selves. That's why when people are an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, they can work that way because they have that psychological safety within themselves. They're usually working with one or two people. They can grind away because they're not working in a bigger team. But when you're not the one in charge and you're working in an organization, it's critical to have that psychological safety to have a high performing team. So it's a yes, and you also need to have a psychological safe environment to work.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the thing about the decision makers, you made me think about. So I went to the Global Leadership Summit, and we had Erin Meyer. She's the author of the Culture Map speak, and she talked about like company culture. And one of the things that she discussed was how in the past, like businesses had the pyramid, like it was like CEO here and then whoever. So you had this pyramid of authority when it came to decision making. And a lot of that is built, like that structure is a little bit built in the desire to control. And also, usually with there's a desire to control, there's mistrust. And so she said that what works best with companies is when instead of a pyramid, you do it as a tree, because a tree is flexible. So you lay the foundation and you say, here's what we believe, here's our culture. And then you give people in the tree the autonomy to make decisions. That's why you have companies like Netflix and Google who have like the flexible, type structure because they hired the right person, or they, yeah.
That's what I was going to comment on, hiring the right person too, because like you'd be surprised sometimes. People be wanting you to just tell them what to do.
I mean, different, but it's a different. Like I go back to what Ibrahim said about it's different between a corporation and startup. Because in a corporation, there definitely are people who want to just be told what to do. But in a startup, you want people who take ownership of their work. If you hire somebody who's a marketer, you want to know that this marketer. Sorry, I'm trying to log onto this computer. You want to know that this marketer is like the best at what they do. They love what they do, and they're going to really hit the ground running.
Yeah, ideally they're autonomous, but you'd be surprised. I think people sometimes lack the creativity to problem solve and the confidence to like execute on decisions on their own. But I do think it is the responsibility of the leader to foster an environment where they can be empowered by those decisions, because I don't think our society like really cultivates that as much as it could for people, if that makes sense. Like, I wish more people were autonomous, like more people kind of like followed their instinct or expertise to like, I don't know. I think, yeah.
I mean, I get what you're saying, Savannah, but I used to say this to my mom. I'd be like, I don't get why everybody doesn't want to be an entrepreneur. Like, just do this, like in any aspect of your life. Like, do this and do that, da, da, da. And she goes, well, if everybody was an entrepreneur, who would work in your business? Like, who would be your employees if everybody wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Okay, but you don't have to be an entrepreneur to like be creative and problem solve. Like, you know what I mean? Like, come on.
To be entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
I was on the ride headed to LA, and I said on the plane that there was a guy named Alex. I'm a butcher last time. I should find him because I might see him in his live. But he's a visual designer. And I'm like, man, he said, what do you do? He's asking Stiller Racy. It's like Italian. I don't know. I hope he don't be mad that I bet you mad that I'm still on filming this. And he's like, oh, at least he gave it a try. Oh yeah, maybe I'll put it in the private chat. That way you can like but this is how you say that about. I like to my grandma. That was always my school, which was women. So I always gave it a shot. Can't pronounce that last name.
We're getting echo. I turned off my other.
You came out sounding like a cartoon on my side.
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
I just asked how the connection was, but yeah, we might have some connection issues because we're dropping.
Yeah. Also, I don't think this connected to my live, which sucks because I set it up on the other link, which is whatever. I thought I would translate because of my account, but anyway. Amaz, can you tell us again what the last thing you tried to say was? What was it? Because it was all jumbled.
Watch it. What about now?
Yeah, that's better.
I'm gonna mute myself when I'm not talking.
Hello. Mic check. Okay, am I good? Can y'all hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, I met the guy Alex on the airplane. Let him know I said I'm a freelancer. He said, "Hey man, we're all freelancers." It hit different from him because he works in Hollywood on VFX. You know what I'm saying? So he's a benefactor of these. It's a large corporation in Hollywood. You know, some of those films that he worked on. I'm like, wow, those are some pretty big main films. I know one of them you mentioned was What's Time in Hollywood, which was directed by Quentin Tarantino. You know what I'm saying? So like just seeing that relationship is like, wow, you know, and for him to consider us all to be freelancers, I've related to it in the sense of at the end of the day, we all come into this world and we have to make these decisions. You know what I'm saying? So like even in the world of like entrepreneurship, it's like, okay, are entrepreneurs able to collaborate? Let's say you have the four of us, we all have a vision, but we're here with one goal in mind, which is the Millionaires in Progress. We're all entrepreneurs, but we're still finding a way to elevate one another's visions, even though it might not be in this structure of like a hierarchy or, you know, that sort of thing. What if everybody could be entrepreneurs? Maybe everybody is entrepreneurs.
Well, I like the idea. I think as I think about entrepreneurship and freedom, this idea of starting an agency, I like that word. It's kind of funny, right? Because it's literally about you maintaining your agency. So I think that's an interesting give out there. It's like if you want to have agency, start an agency. And when it comes to entrepreneurship, I mean, startup founders, specifically for startup founders who want to build big businesses, tend to be a little bit like neurodiverse. Like statistically speaking, it is not meant for everybody. And there is a specific personality type, whether that's healthy or unhealthy is a reality. Like being an entrepreneur feels like sometimes it is like a part of your being sometimes in terms of how you think and approach the world. So it's hard to prescribe that sort of lifestyle to other individuals when you are kind of a little unhinged, right? Like entrepreneurs are kind of wild. Like, and it's kind of required to have that level of creativity and that ability to break out of the average norm. That's not everybody's cup of tea. And so I think it's important to understand also the forces that are impacting others, because depending on your scenario, I feel like there are privileges and sacrifices you have to make, and we have different risk tolerances to make that jump. But I do think finding ways to make it easier to access entrepreneurial education and pathways to start, I think can really help create change.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I do agree with that. The crazy thing is, this has just been like in my travels. I'd love to hear what you guys say. And even though there's all of these things we can do better to foster entrepreneurship in the US, I still feel like the US is one of the best places to do it. Like we just have our infrastructure is so much further along. And it is more so of an environment for starting from zero, you know? So I don't know.
Well, I want to say it's opportunity in Australia. I studied in Australia for 5 months. You know what I'm saying? I was out there. Being out there, I had the opportunity to create our art show. It didn't work out, but it was very much possible. Along the journey, I had the opportunity. I was doing some street art. I was in an alleyway painting on the wall. And the guy said, "Hey, man, you pretty good, man." He said, "Hey, we're actually putting together a music show if you want to be the live artist for the show." So they hired me to be the live artist for this music show. I was in Australia because they saw me doing street art. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that within 5 months to obtain the opportunity to do live art in a country that I was foreign to, it informed me in that moment, like, hey, if I was to stay in Australia, I probably could do well because I'm already receiving opportunity from people I don't even know.
Yeah.
And I've been here at that point, I was there for about 4 months, maybe 3 months at that point. So I feel like it was possibilities for me to do well in that country. The challenge for me was that it was just so far from home, so far from a place that I was familiar to. That's the reason I couldn't really see myself staying there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's opportunities everywhere. It just depends on what opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think I'm thinking more like the $1 million billion opportunity.
That's what I was going to address.
Here in the US, that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, the social stratification of other places is unlike the US in a lot of ways. And I'm not here to be a proponent of like how difficult it is to break into a different class specifically, right? If like we for a moment separate this from the other qualities in a person that might make their trajectory different or maybe more difficult or maybe easier, right? But I do think it's still possible here in a way that like is not the same in other places. And like I kind of wrote like my grad school essay about this, where it's like we have this trope around like what we did, right? Which is like get that one scholarship that like pays for everything, and like you worked so hard and you embody all these characteristics, and because of that, like you get to make it, you know what I mean? Or like you get to have this type of experience. And while I think that's great, I don't think we should accept that trope or that narrative or that like way of being for other people, because it's not really useful in creating a society where like people find their place and are afforded opportunities based off of their skills, talents, like, you know. Did you guys see the, oh, I don't know, this might like spiral into a different topic. If the audience has not yet checked out the like the TED Talk fiasco from the summer around the colorblindness like talk, it's very interesting. There was an article in the Free Press about it, but that's all I'll really say. I wanted to go back to the decision making and creativity thing for a second here, and pose a question to you guys that might help the audience around, like, do you ever have a filter for your decision making process? Is there ever something where you're like, hey, in this moment or in these types of decisions, this is a thought process that me or my team goes through, or this is what we prioritize, or maybe even like we talked about in relationships. So like if you're making a major decision, like to move across the country, but you've got a spouse to worry about, or like something like that, is there a decision making process that you go through that other people might be able to learn from? Like, you
know. I would say for me, one of the first things I begin with is consulting God on the decision.
Okay.
I pray, you know what I'm saying? I resort back to some of like the crucial things for me, was like the commandments, like the 10 Commandments, fearing God, just the things like that. For me, that's simple, you know what I'm saying? Kind of keep it simple for me. And then after that, like I look at honesty, you know what I'm saying? Is that an honest decision? You feel me? And then after I kind of check off those two things, sometimes it kind of, I had this really conversation yesterday. I had a denim jacket that I was going to paint on. I couldn't decide what to paint. I just knew it was an unlimited canvas. I knew anything could be done there. And then I was like, I don't know where to begin. I couldn't make that decision. And my brother was like, hey, you know what? Maybe you could respond to the fact that, because I applied for the Bears job, they actually let me know that I got rejected pretty much, you know, for the graphic design position. They went to someone else, but it's cool. But he like, maybe you could respond to the Bears logo and do some sort of inspiration around that. And I said, you know what? I think I had to kind of manifest and think about what direction to go in. My brother shared that idea. And I went with it, you know, it didn't seem bad. It seemed cool. It was relevant. It was relevant to my experience. It was unique. And I just allowed that to guide me. And as I'm making these decisions on the jacket, it kind of go back into this conversation on creativity. Is like, you can teach the creativity, and that's a process as well. But sometimes a creative might just go in and make decisions along the way that might not be as, this was calculated. This was just like more of the creative flow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I've never really used God to make a decision, but I would love to learn more about how you do that. I wish I was like, I never learned about a lot of this until you came into my life, Emma. So I really appreciate that, because like I wasn't even an answer I was expecting, but that's cool. Okay.
Even here, like even being in this call, like I hold you, like being like with Ibrahim, like me and Ibrahim probably met 2-3 times before me and him had started collaborating. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted to get to know Ibrahim. So I was like, let me just listen. Let me see who Ibrahim is. Because if I decide to work with Ibrahim, this going to affect my relationship with God. Ultimately, that's what I thought about.
I love that. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've taken an extreme analytical approach to making decisions.
We're a lot like that here.
I feel like I'm mixed. I feel I'm always, did I tell you? Okay, I did the 16 personalities, and like I did 2 different, this is relevant. Okay, I did it 2 different times, 6 months apart, and got 2 different responses. But I looked up like what that means when you get 2 different results. And though there was only 1 letter difference between them, and my letter difference is thinking versus feeling. And so I'm always constantly like deciding, is this a moment to be more analytical or more emotional? Is it a moment to be more process driven or more free flowing? And so when you guys are talking about this, it's like, yeah, like sometimes I do go to God. Like I feel like God gave me my overall mission, my overall life purpose. And so every decision that I make is against that life purpose. But I take a very like, process driven, like analytical approach to how I'm actually going to execute on that decision.
So let me get into the analytics here, because there's a difference between making a small decision, a medium decision, and a big decision. So I'm going to start with like from the bottom up, right? For small decisions, I think it very clearly is almost like intuition, because you know what your immediate priorities are, right? So if you, in your next month or 2 weeks, does this align to your immediate priorities? Yes or no? For medium decisions, we have to think about deprioritizing. You really want to think about what is the KPI or metric that you're tracking. Are you tracking revenue, social capital? How is this going to impact my life or my business? For larger decisions, I'll make actual table matrices that'll say, I like for example, let's take grad school. What grad school do I want to apply to? It might be, here's the location, here's the program, here's the fit to my SAT score. Does it have all the different criterias? And then you can create a matrix from 1 to 10 and see where a thing lies. You can even add in a spiritual component. It could be, this is just the question mark miscellaneous. And then you can also assign weights. So it could be, maybe location is a 50% part of the score. Maybe the faculty that you're working with is 20%. So you can actually create your own metrics and scorecard to figure out and numerically categorize all the different options that you have. So those are some of the different ways that I've approached decision making.
I love how I appreciate it. I love how analytical you are, Ibrahim. Like,
you taught me analytics in a new way.
Yeah, I feel like it's you're like, if I'm here, you're like but like in the best way. And I'm saying that to say, like, I love how we all have different, we all have different personalities in a way, but they're all complementary. And I think that's just, it's beautiful.
Well, that's something I think about with artificial intelligence is, can you quantify everything? Because like AI is able to get to very, very, very narrow pieces of decision making. And so can we actually start quantifying what an emotion is? What is an emotional decision making? Can you yes and actually put a number to it? Maybe, I don't know, but I am following that pursuit of questions of figuring out what can and can we not quantify.
Yeah.
Okay. I love this. Thank you guys for answering that question. I'm laughing because like I could have guessed what Ibrahim was going to say, but it's always so valuable. But I love, because like I can count on him talking to a part of my brain that like that I'm a lot like you in that I'm like more analytical and like less emotional in my decision making. But yeah, I like the distinction of the different categories too. That was cool. Okay. I don't, we're kind of like close on time. So I wanted to just offer two things with my own response to that question. And then maybe we can close out with something again to like give the audience or maybe offer a share. There's two decision-making processes that I like have been thinking about lately. They both have to do with my businesses, but like one is like, how do I decide who should be in my generational wealth program and like why, what makes them like a good candidate? Because I really care about my results. I really care about like, is this community moving towards the goals that we agreed on as a collective? Like what would be like my, you know, quote unquote, like graduation rate? Like what would be my dropout rates? Like, you know, what percentage of people are actually going to show up on time or like be engaged or, you know, present a lot of value to their community. Like even with our Gates Scholarship community, like there was 20,000 of us. I don't know what the numbers are, and that'd be really interesting to pull up, but to see like how many of us went, like actually finished undergrad at all, how many of us like went on to pursue different numbers or levels of education, whether or not there was consistency in that. Anyway, let me just make this a little shorter. Basically, when it comes to like who I want to bring in, I don't care at all about what people's backgrounds are. And like my team had that discussion. I don't care if like right now you're working in sanitation or you're working in tech. It totally doesn't matter to me as much as your response to questions around what you believe your potential to be and where your mindset is at when it comes to like a willingness to go through a transformation. Because I do feel like you need to be at a certain like trigger point for you to actually want change and to do that. And so I try and capture people who are like actually seeking that journey, which is like makes sense, I guess, because like they would only be coming to me to like further it. And there's like a double opt-in opportunity where like I really get to kind of vet them based off of that. And it's not a dollar amount, it's not a background, it's not an education level. It really is more about mindset. When it comes to like Casa de la Luna, which is a totally different business, that's like the one that I'm building, that's a Sephora for vaginas. Like I spoke to many like people about their like care below the waist experiences. And I would just like catalog them in the beginning. I did this for like almost a year in everything from like recent pregnancies to like menopause to any basically lifestyle experience a woman was having. Like, hey, okay, you have endometriosis. And I'd be like, hey, do you mind if we hop on a 15-minute call? And I would just write and listen and ask questions and all this stuff, right? Cool. When it came to some of the OBGYNs that I set up meetings with, they were like, you know, you have to be really careful about what you will ultimately decide to put on shelves. And I said, well, just because, for example, I don't use a soap or maybe I don't practice this thing doesn't mean that I should make it exclusive or unavailable to other people who do feel like that's a part of their spiritual practice. For example, like yoni steaming, things like that, where it's like, it's not really something that I do, but it's something that is like very important to some people. It doesn't have like a scientifically backed medical like benefit. That being said, it's like, one doctor offered to me that by putting something on my shelves, I'm automatically accepting or proclaiming that this thing is okay, right? Or that I'm like condoning it. And so the decision making matrix that I'm trying to develop for what ultimately gets put on shelves has to have like a business angle, a societal norm angle, a like all these different, like, you know, care below the waist is very political, especially in the United States. I'll leave it at that. But if anyone ever wants to be involved in the decision-making matrix, it's one of those that has been a challenge for me to like work through and make an actual matrix for, because I do think that'll be important for like my team as we onboard or bring in different product bases, whether that's in the intimacy, feminine hygiene, or vaginal care categories. Now let's just we'll talk for a long time. Hopefully someone got some value out of that. But yeah, I don't know. It's Friday. It's Fire Pit Friday. Our topic was decisions. Our topic was creativity. I don't know, maybe in like one sentence or even just one word, what would we like to leave with people? Also, there were no questions, right? I don't know. I wish that this had worked on live for my platform too. I haven't figured this out. I'm so sorry.
I mean, maybe we just switch back to Instagram. I don't know, until we get like more established. Who knows?
No, you've been doing amazing, Ellie. Thank you so much for setting us up on this.
This is great. I like this though, because I like the recording. It's cool.
And you can invite people to Restream, and then the chat. There can like chat, so they can come directly to the Restream.
All right, we got to set that up. But anyway, okay. So, do you want to close this out, Ellie? I don't know. Do a word, a sentence, anything.
What's something that you also hope to accomplish within the next week that we can hold you accountable for the next Fire Pit Friday?
Oh, I like that.
Ooh, okay, so let's see. In the next week, man, I've been thinking day to day. I'm gonna be honest with you. The biggest thing that I'm focused on right now is my Miss Marketing Maven. I have calculated, like, I'm basically creating all the content. I want to have my the free, or not the free, but the ebook that I'm gonna give away. I want to have that completed in the next week, and I'm like 80% done with it. The templates, the IG highlights templates that I'm working on to sell as well, I want to have those complete by next week. So I would say that's kind of just in this one business, that's my goals for the next week. And we'll leave it at that one. We'll leave out personal and other stuff and job and all that.
For now.
I'm focused on just Miss Marketing Maven right now for like the next 2 weeks, really. And getting all of the content for socials together, getting all of the things I'm going to sell together. Like, that's my main focus the next 2 weeks.
Cool.
My one sentence would be dedicated to continuous improvement.
Mine was not a sentence. Be dedicated to continuous improvement. I love it.
That's it.
So what's your goal for next week?
My goal for next week is to finish and launch the Two Flow Ventures new website, so we can start accepting deal flow through the website, having to build our community on there. I'm really excited about it.
That's exciting. I can't wait to hear. Savannah, Amaz.
One of my goals is to remain optimistic about the potential opportunities for myself. Sometimes I've been feeling like I got a few, I guess rejection sometimes could lead to that moment of like, okay, let me reevaluate, but I kind of want to stay less out of the reevaluation phase and more into the optimistic. Let me keep progressive. I want to be very progressive within these next few days. So progressive, optimism. Maybe that's what it is. Progressive optimism.
What's your goal?
My goal, honestly, I haven't set a goal for this week. I am working towards in the next 3 months. My goal is to make $30,000 in 3 months, and that's what I'm focusing in on. So it's more of a 3-month goal for me right now.
Savannah, did you say something?
No, my little sister is making some noise, so I was telling her not to make too much noise.
Oh,
okay. And to listen to Moz.
I was because we couldn't hear you.
I'm so sorry. I know. Okay, that's a good goal, Moz. I think staying positive around your prospects are important, and just lean into your belief system OD. And I know you've been like talking to me about that because like that's important. Like all those rejections are just redirection, you know?
Amen. I was gonna say rejection is protection, as they say as well.
Okay, yeah, I like that. That's a good one too.
Yeah.
That's Ellie's sentence.
There's my sentence. Yeah, rejection is protection.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Okay. Dang, I don't know about a sentence, but I feel like my answer to the question is, well, first I'll say that what I want to do within the next week is finish building out a actual viable sales agent. And I shouldn't say sales agent, more conversational agent on an AI platform that can interact with people and help me just call people at volume and at scale. Mm-hmm. So that's my goal for the next week. I already finished up the knowledge base that bot, I shouldn't call it a bot, that agent would need in order to like make informed or answer questions in an informed way and like understand my business. So it's like already downloaded an understanding of like one section of the stuff that I do. So now I just have to like put the actual script to the test. So I guess my sentence for people would be, don't squander the opportunity that is AI. You can use both your decision-making and creativity to like, really help a lot of people. And yeah, that's what I'm planning to do.
I have to second that.
Thank you. No, mine was a run-on sentence.
AI has been really helpful. Like I feel like when I set my like short-term goals, it's very overarching. And then this Scrum was helping with like daily tasks. But I've also so it's like I'm creating the things that I'm going to sell, but also the things to promote the things I'm going to sell. So
yeah,
it's like heavy every single day. Like I've been working like 12+ hour days. I went to bed at midnight last night and still woke up at 5:30 this morning.
Oh, you mean 996? Dude, me too. I went to bed at like almost 3, but I was so happy.
Out this content creation on both the free and paid end, and I'm not stopping until it's done. I have a strategy for it, so
that's so good.
I see it. Y'all inspiring me daily for real.
I'm not playing. That's the only way I know how to say it. Like I'm not playing because this like goal of mine, this 10K. That's the I don't know how else to say it. Like I'm up here doing work, putting in work. Okay, because
of course
this is not happening anymore. I'm
sacrifice. That's part of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We'll be sure to post the live. I think we're going to post it on our MillionHEIRs in Progress. So I'll share that page on my stories so you guys can tap in. And we'll see you guys next Friday.
Definitely. Let us know.
Reach out if you need any help.
Totally.
Definitely. And check out the site. Amazabar.com.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see. I ended the